Hi there, this is Travis Hyatt at Next Home Beyond. I'm the broker and owner of Next Home Beyond in North Liberty, Iowa. We primarily work in the Cedar Rapids and Iowa City metro markets. Um, we often have questions come up about our buyer agreement. It's not just ours, it's statewide. In July of 2024, the law changed, and the way we represent buyers had to be better explained to buyers before we start showing them properties. The main reason for this is because they have now what they call decoupled commissions or compensation. And what that means is we used to be able to go to the MLS, see what we're getting paid and all that type of stuff. We can no longer see that. Yes, we can make a call and ask the broker and things like that. But honestly, more than anything, it's more important for the buyer to understand how that works and how we represent them, things we do, can do, can't do, all that type of stuff. So we're going to walk you through the buyer agency. I do have a quicker video if you need a little bit like let's get to the point type of thing. This one's going to be more involved, explaining it more deeply. Of course, when you sit down with your agent, they'll probably do something similar to kind of walk you through this form. It can be a little weird because it's kind of like, okay, now you're asking us to get married by signing a document and we haven't even dated yet. And we understand that that could be weird, but we got to follow the law. So I'm going to show you this document on our page here, so you can kind of get an idea of what we're looking at. So this is the document. It is a pretty easy to understand buyer agreement. So when we're doing this, you're entering into agreement with the buyer and the brokerage. So the whether it's your agent or me, and as the broker, doesn't matter. It's under the brokerage umbrella. So when we do that, we're getting into usually an exclusive representation agreement. We typically do exclusive because when we start talking about non-exclusive or having a bunch of other people in, other chefs in the kitchen, if you will, sometimes there's misinformation or you're telling one person something and you didn't tell the other, and they like, why did you miss that? And it's like, well, you never told me that. You might have told somebody else. So we try to keep that exclusive because we're going to be committed and working for you, and we kind of want the same thing so that we're all on the same page and there's no lost translation situations. So that's typically exclusive. There are places to initial for that. There's also a retainer period. This is like the time frame when we're going to do it. So if you're looking at it from like we're going to list your property, we'd list it for 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is. This is kind of similar, except you can do anything from one day for to up to 1 year at anything in between. Typically, we're probably in the 3 to 4 month on average frames for that because most of the time people want to start working with the agent, and then it's, hey, we've got it under contract. Now we can close 30, 45 days later, wherever it may be. And that usually covers that time frame. In the event that this needs to be extended or something, it's an easy form to do. Um, there's some other things in here that we want to be aware of, and that's the protection period, and that's basically to protect the broker from the agent or excuse me, from a buyer or seller trying to backdoor a deal. And what that means is maybe the buyer went through it, really liked it, thought, man, I'd really like to buy that property. And then they go knock on the door, and the seller's like, yeah. And they're like, hey, you fire your agent, I'll fire my agent. You don't have to pay the commission. We both get a better deal. Let's go that way. When in fact, the agent that had the listing probably has exclusive right to sell listing, which just means they're getting paid no matter what. And the agent on the buyer side has this agreement with them, and we're preparing cause for that, and they should get paid as well, as long as they're doing everything they should be doing in that process. So that's kind of why the broker protection period is in there. There's also one when like I said, the person on the other side has that listing agreement with their broker. Then there's also minimum requirements. Now, this is state mandated minimum things that are required. And that's, working delivery of items, doing the developing, the communicating, the negotiating, presenting offers, helping with whether it's sale, purchase, exchange, you name it, it's all kind of itemized in there. And then showing properties, of course, things like that, accessing listed properties, and sometimes even accessing unlisted properties like for sale by owners or unrepresented sellers, things like that. One of the things I tell all my buyers is if this is all we're doing, then you should call us and fire us because we do so much more beyond that. Next Home Beyond, that there's a reason for that. But this is what the state requires, and we'll show you as we go some of those extra things we do. Then there's obligations of the agent. So they, the brokerage has theirs, and then the agent has some things to keep them prepared as well, keeping their confidential information confidential, making sure they're writing, presenting, effectively presenting offers, and also helping negotiate. Goes into a little bit more depths of that offer and acceptance, and then continuing with the transaction as it goes, including keeping you kind of aware and in line with, hey, our timeframes, which leads directly into the next one, the client's obligations, and that is to abide by those timeframes. Like, hey, we got to do inspections by such and such a date. We have to do earnest money before that. We have to do things like, hey, do you want us to help you find service providers for those things, or do you want to do that yourself? And if so, we want to make sure we're staying in those timeframes. Making sure the financing is done in time, inspections, or excuse me, appraisals, things like that. And sometimes we have another party involved that we need to make sure they're staying in time, and we help with that process. So the next one gets into desired property types. Now, this could be very vague, or it could be really stringent, meaning, hey, we want residential property and it's got to be in the $300,000 to $315,000 price range. We can get into that. Sometimes people say, hey, we don't want a condo, we don't want a zero lot, stuff like that. Fair enough. We could put that in here if we want to be. And then the others are like locations. I've had people come in and say, hey, I want to be in Cedar Rapids. And then I'll ask them, do you want to be in Cedar Rapids? Is Marion okay? Is Hiawatha, Robbins? Or they say, oh, yeah, that's okay. Or they might say Johnson County. And that's like, okay, Iowa City, Coralville, Tiffin, North Liberty, things like that. And they go, well, you know what? I'd go out to West Branch, and that's actually Cedar County. So we might say something more general like counties rather than cities. And then other things might just be any number of things like, hey, we have to have a fenced in yard for the dogs. Okay, fair enough. We might put that in as notes for just to remember, and so we understand. We're listening to it, we get it. But sometimes when we're showing properties, it might not have that fenced in yard already, but it might have the ability to fence in the yard. So we'll get into those things as we go as well, because every property is going to be specific and every situation is a little bit unique. Then there's dual agency, and there's another document entirely for that. We're not going to get into today. Basically, it means who's representing who. And in the event that this person listing the property is also representing the buyer, that's dual agency. And we have to disclose it and talk about how we share or don't share information, especially confidential information. The way I explain it to my sellers pretty quickly is I tell them factual things about the house, material adverse facts about the property, things about going on property specific. They don't need to know why you're selling, when you're selling, what the amount of money they'll take, that type of thing. And then on the buyer side, for what's the financing? When's the money? Where's the money coming? And how's money get there? That's pretty much all that matters. Sometimes buyers want us to tell them about the cute little dogs and the kids and all that stuff. And honestly, we don't get into that too much because, one, it can be a violation of fair housing and familial status. But more importantly, it's not really pertinent to the transaction. And sometimes people will ask those questions and they said, hey, yeah, you can tell them that, we need to move in by certain dates and things like that. But those might be essential needs too. And then competing buyers basically spells out that, hey, there's going to be competing buyers. They may be other companies. They may be our own companies. It might be mine that, hey, we're working together and looking at a property and somebody else is looking at that. I'm showing that again later or already did. And natural instinct is to go, hey, what did they do? What did they offer? What was their thought process? And while it might be nice to know that, I can't disclose confidential information about my other clients, just like you wouldn't want me disclosing confidential information about you or your transaction. So we kind of have to zip it when it comes to that. Then you got compensation. Now, this is the biggest one that scares buyers. It scares agents too. And the long and short of it is we've always had a compensation agreement with our clients. It just, we're spelling it out better now. And in this, we've got a number or percentage that we're going to request from you, but we have mechanisms in place to request from other people. And it talks about that here in Section A, that we're going to prioritize trying to get it from the seller, the seller's agent or brokerage, and trying to get it through those means first. If they're not offering it, we can put it right in the offer and ask for it. So that's the new process where we have opportunity to do that. And then if they don't, just nope, we're not, it's part of negotiation, we're not going to pay that. There's other ways we can do that. We'll talk about that specific to that if it comes up, which honestly, it's rare that aren't willing to coordinate or cooperate and compensate in that area. The identity basically saying we're going to, it's going to be written in the contract, but we're not going to go out and tell them everything about you. But sometimes people will see that in the contract and they'll go to Facebook, they'll go to Google, they'll go to their chat GPT and ask about you. And there's really no way to guard against that. But I always talk to my buyers about, hey, be careful about out there on social media, hey, we found the perfect house today. You made an offer, but you haven't got an accepted offer yet. And even if you did have an accepted offer, let's not talk about that too much, like how much we love the house and we're so excited, because sometimes they might see that and go, okay, if it comes to point of negotiation later, we've got something against them. We know how much they love it or whatever it may be. Because let's say we ask for remedies on inspections and they go, I saw your video. You don't want to lose this house. And then they counter in a way that you don't like, or maybe doesn't fit your needs. So we'll talk about that as we get into that more specifically for you. Then you got brokerage services. This is basically just saying, hey, we're not attorneys, we're not lenders, we're not appraisers or surveyors, and the list goes on, but we're real estate agents, and this is where we stay in our lane, basically. And then there's documents that we do can help you complete these documents. And it goes on in modification that anytime it's modified, you must sign off on it. And that goes across the board. I don't care if you're with us, some other company. Anytime there's a change, you've got to agree to it, either initials in writing, sometimes an email statement will work, but it's got to be written. And typically, in my experience, a text message, not really good enough. If you're just negotiating back and forth and it's like you're counter offering, you're way off on price or something, and then you drill it down, that's okay as long as that last one is okay. Here it is written, everybody signs it, now we're good. Then you got a couple things with communication and how we transfer information. It talks about different things. Most of the time, it's going to be email and or physically, and it could be scanned documents and stuff like that. But basically, everything in there is going to be disseminated or given to you pretty quickly. There might be a closing representative. If there's anything that gives information about disclosing personal information, it's typically going to be geared towards the financing from the buyer's perspective or their proof of funds, things like that. And those we do need. We are required to have, in most cases, that proof of funds letter and or the pre-approval from a lender prior to showing properties. And most sellers are now requesting that you have that in hand before you even show my property, which I completely understand and agree with. Then you got the entire agreement, but basically anything can be signed electronically, and we are good with that. And there's assignment. You can't assign contracts and agency agreements with consent by everybody. And then it's legally binding. Indemnifications just hold harmless. Basically, if someone falls at the property, we know it's winter in Iowa and whatever it may be. We might have ways like a hold harmless against the brokerages. If you're in the house and ceiling fan falls off the ceiling, hits you in the head, okay, that may be a different thing. I'm not a lawyer, so I couldn't tell you what goes next, what happens next. And then remedies parties, basically who does what in the event something is going awry. We'll talk about that as it comes up. It's too broad to put into a video without spending 20, 30 minutes on it. And then you got fair housing, which is those race, color, creed, sex, or sexual orientation, gender identity things. We got to abide by that. If you tell us something we can't abide by, we don't. And we'll tell you why we can't. Another one that comes into play a lot of times is steering. Some people ask, what's that mean? What's that? Basically, steering is where we steer you to or away from an area based on our own personal biases. We cannot do that. You can steer us as the consumer all day, all the time. You can say, I want to be in this school district. I want to be in this part of town. I don't want to be south of that street. All those things are perfectly fine from you, the buyer, but we can't say, oh, you don't want to live over there, or we don't like that area because of this. you have to make those determinations yourself. So sometimes we'll give you information on, the schools or crime statistics, or at least a place where you can get that information and make your own educated decision. Then the last one is going to be just that these are, in fact, legally signatures, regardless of which way you get them. These e-platforms, e-signing, loop, DocuSign, you've heard of several others, I'm sure, are all perfectly legal, and whether you do it that way or through that way. So that's pretty much the gist of it. And if you had any questions about it, talk to me, talk to your agent. We're happy to give you a little bit more understanding of all those things. As I mentioned, the dual agency, that's another document entirely. So we really drill into that one as well. And we look forward to helping you and helping you find your next home. All right. Make it a great day. Bye now.